I did want to add, you kind of touched on a couple of stories, but announcing, you've got to have some pretty memorable stories from announcing, just different things that happened through the years, whether it be, wild rides or funny or sentimental.
Well, I got a funny but not funny story. They used to have a pool, Mid-Missouri did, for the Special Learning Center in Jefferson City, which is a school that, from what I understand, is pretty much all privately funded, and the kids don't have to pay to go there, and it's for mentally handicapped children and for physically handicapped children.
Mm-hmm.
And they would, I don't know what the reason was. We're talking probably 2006-ish here, mid-2000s they did this. And I don't know why, but it always moved venues. It would be in the same place for a couple years, and then it would move. One year it was down in Eldon. And we're down there, and the pool's going on, and all of a sudden this guy across the track from me starts yelling obscenities at this group. And when he would yell, I figured out he was yelling at these kids would be my left, and they would laugh. Well, this was back when texting started on cell phone. Well, these kids would text this guy's daughter, and then he would yell back across the track.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking, with, bleachers and everything.
Yep.
And he was using very vulgar language. And this was, they strive to make this a family event.
Yep.
So finally I'm like, hey, bub, I said, well, I don't know what's going on here, but you need to stop yelling all these obscenities at the top of your lungs. I said, we got a lot of kids around here, and I said, this is, a family event. I said, I don't know what's going on, and I don't want to get in the middle of it, but I said, we can't be doing this. And of course, it went on, and finally I got a little aggravated, which what I should have done is just got the law enforcement over there.
Yep.
And had them handle it. But I was like, why are you being such a butthead?
Yeah.
So I once again, I told him, I said, Bub, I said, you need to calm down. And then I told him, I said, you just need to shut up. And I shouldn't have said that. I should have just told him to calm down.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear him for like a truck or a tractor. I think we were pulling tractors. I think 85 Limited Pros is what was going down the track. And all of a sudden, the sled operator gets on the radio and goes, heads up, that guy's coming around to meet you. And here he comes, just trucking up the sideline, and I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to handle this? And I thought, well, I don't know if this is going to get physical or not. So I literally unplugged the microphone out of the cord, and I don't want to sound, I'm no fighter by any stretch of the imagination or anything like that, but I thought, well, if I'm going to get in a physical altercation, first rule of fighting is there's no rules. I'm going to have figure maybe I just knock him upside the head a little bit, not hard, but get his attention to this microphone. So he comes up and we get chest to chest, and I'm like, dude, you just need to cool off. So I don't know what's going on, but you can't be yelling like that. And I don't know why he just didn't go over and talk to these people. But he's screaming at me, and he drew back to punch me. And I'm like, and about that time, an off-duty Missouri State Highway patrolman was there. And he was standing behind him, and I think what he was doing is waiting for this guy to make a move.
Yeah.
And when he drew back, the highway patrolman grabbed him and spun him around and stated who he was, what his rank. I'm Missouri State Highway, off-duty Missouri State Highway patrolman, Lieutenant so-and-so, and, or no, excuse me, it was a sergeant. And he said, you're under arrest for assault. So, about that time, the Miller County deputy got over there. They handcuffed him, and
no kidding.
And yeah, so I'm like, so 2 tractors had went down the track, so I got to go get up there.
Plug your microphone back
plug
in.
the microphone back in, because that trooper's like, you just get back up there and get to work. We'll take care of him. So I was like, oh my God. So I was like, well, hopefully that guy doesn't know my name. Now this is the funny part about this. So the next week we go to Iberia, and I'm announcing a pool. Well, the Miller County paper took a picture of my son standing up against the guardrail with his head. He was about 4 at the time. Once again, I think this was 2006. And he put his picture on the front page of the paper. Anthony Buschjost's dad, Chad Buschjost, announces the pull in Iberia. And I thought, well, now the guy knows what my name is. And my wife and I kind of thought it was funny, but not. I mean, I never heard from the guy again.
Sure.
You know, and everybody's entitled to a bad night.
Yeah.
I don't judge the guy. We're all human beings. But that's, you know, and when I first started announcing, and they put this organization together, Mid-Missouri, when they put it together, it was kind of like the Wild Wild West for a while.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were some people that didn't like that. And I had several confrontations because the thing with being at the announcer's table, the pullers realize that you can't move.
Yep.
You can't walk away from them.
Yep.
So they chose that place to come vent their frustrations at me.
Yep.
And I'm like, guys, I don't have nothing to do with this organization other than I run my mouth.
Yep.
You know, I just talk about you guys. I have no sway with the board or rules or anything like that. And I'm not going to name any names, but there was a puller that got so out of line at the state fair one year. The next year at the driver's meeting, I picked up the microphone and I said, if you bring any complaints up here to the announcer's stand and get belligerent, the people here at the announcer's stand, Doyle and I, have the right to disqualify you, and you won't get any money or anything. You're just going to need to go home.
Yeah.
And that was nothing that I did out of glee, or I, you know, was trying to be, you know, strut my stuff or anything like that. But it's just like, we can't do anything about it. We're just recording distances and stating, you know, what we're doing.
Yep.
So that, you know, it was an interesting time back in the early 2000s, mid 2000, you know, before 2010. You know, you know, just certain situations I got in. But like I said, I always enjoyed it, honestly. You know, I had several people that did that, and they came up later and they apologized. They shook my hand and said, hey, you know, I was just frustrated and I took it out on you.
Yep.
I sincerely apologize.
And it happens, you know.
Yeah. You know, and I to this day even like, and I don't know the guy's name from down there in Eldon, but I don't harbor any hard feelings.
Sure.
You know, but those are probably the, you know, that's the story that sticks out in my mind is the one from Eldon and almost getting, you know, trying to get somebody to quit basically making a butthead of themselves in public, and they're going to go over and kick my butt because they're being a butthead. You know?
Yeah.
that would probably be the one thing. And you know, I've seen so many wild rides. And one other thing, you know, talk about wild rides. We were at Garden City, and this was probably the funniest night. It was announced for Missouri State, and the promoter came up to me and he said, we want to do a street diesel class after the pull. And this was like, we were probably 2 classes from being completed. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. You know, I was like, I'm contracted to do Missouri State show. I don't really want to, no offense, I don't want to do your hometown. Because they had probably, I'm not joking, they probably had 25 pickups.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, no. So he comes back and he agreed to pay me almost what Missouri State paid me to do that one class. So I'm like, well, what the heck? I'll stay. Well, you know from watching these bulls for as long as you have, the GM pickups that are stock, what do they do when they take off?
Yeah.
The front end goes like this.
Yep.
So about, I don't know, probably 5 to 6 of them trucks broke the front end. And that's back when O'Reilly Auto Parts, their TV commercials, they do that O'Reilly Auto Parts at the end. Well, I got that every time a truck would break in a class, and that night it was like, and I don't care what make or model it was, you know, it could be Ford, Dodge, or Chevrolet, it doesn't matter. But I'd go, O'Reilly's, and the crowd would go, Auto Parts. And I mean, the whole crowd pretty much stayed there to watch it. So that's cool. You know, that they made it more worthwhile than the money because the crowd was so engaged.
Sure.
So those are 2 of my stories that really
mean, you're kind of the jack of all trades when it comes to pulling, because you've been a photographer, and now you've been a videographer, you've announced, you have crewed on these trucks, you've helped build them, and you have driven these trucks. Now, I know you've told me in the past, you and your brother, I used to run a Super Street truck.
Yeah,
that kind of started there.
Yeah, that's how we got started. We were considering building a truck, and Sean Shelp, that owns the Rated X Pro Stock truck now, bought the scrap iron modified that I was talking about earlier. And he tried to convince my brother and I to buy that truck, and we were like, oh, you know, at the time my brother was still living at home, and I had just gotten married, and we were like, finally Sean was like, well, if you'll pay for the racing fuel, and if you break it, you buy it. Okay, fine. So here we are. Sean just, out of the goodness of his heart,
here's a pulling truck, go play with it.
Yeah, pretty much. So we started doing that, and that's how we got our feet wet. And you know, and it kind of progressed from there. The first time I drove a pulling truck was in 2000. Right before my son was born, so I'm gonna say 2002, I think, and it was at Iberia. I drove, it was a blue, I think it was an 87 Chevy, called it Wild Horses, and I drove it down at, like I said, at Iberia, Pullman, mid-Missouri, pulled the old Taylor sled. That's like we used to pulling that.
Yep.
And then the first time I sat in a Pro Stock truck was in Tuscumbia, Missouri. I'm gonna say that was the end of the right before I started doing all my announcing, so I'm gonna say that was either 2006 or 2007, because when Wicked Sensation came out, his first go around, I guess you would call it, or the Wicked Sensation 1.0 was actually it was gray, it was gunmetal gray, and we pulled it for a season. Didn't like the way the chassis was set up at all, so we took it back that winter and basically took everything off of it and started over, and we found a fiberglass bed for it, and it was Bahama blue. We set that on there, and we got it mounted on the truck. We're like, man, we kind of like that blue better than that gray.
Mm-hmm.
So then we got a local body shop there in Jefferson City, Kimna Collision. We worked out a deal with them, and you know, they cut us a deal on painting the truck, and so then, like I said, pulling the Super Street truck was awesome. Don't get me wrong. You know, pull that baby back in 2-low, and you know, and it was fun. But when you get out there and you got close to 1,000 horsepower at that time, trucks were running. You know, back then, if you were pumping 950 out of them, you know, and that's about what old Wicked had between the fender wells back then. And, you know, and you get out there and it's when you step down on it, it has a lot more response.
Yeah.
You know, of course the Super Street engines back then are nothing compared to what they are now.
Sure.
Performance-wise, you know, they're getting a lot more out of them now. You know, even the Pro Stock trucks, you know, they're used to, if you had 900 to 950 horsepower, you were right there in the hunt. You know, and now it takes, you got to have over 1,000, more like 1,100 to really, if you want to really compete.
Yeah.
So, but that's my two first times. I don't drive very much. You know, I enjoy it, but I'm like I said earlier, I'm kind of the analytical guy. I like looking at stuff, trying to figure out within the rules, trying to figure out ways that we can to get the trucks to hook together better.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with street tire trucks. Working with Kevin and my brother Andy, you know, kicking ideas around with them. Modified trucks, running with Charlie, I'm getting a little bit better hold on. You're dealing with a tremendous amount more horsepower, torque, and you got a lot more rubber on.
Yeah, more traction.
So I'm still doing my best to catch up with that. Of course, I don't go, you know, I don't get to go as much with Charlie as I would like.
Yeah.
But I do have fun with Kevin, you know, and so that's kind of where that's at.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, and I know I've had a lot lot of you guys will come up to me at an event, and, you know, hey, is Chad here? No, he's not here. And you know, you're always disappointed, you know, but I've always told Chad, you know, Chad is a puller first, and like he said, he's helping Kevin and helping his brother and this and that. You know, if those guys are pulling, it's hard for him to film and do the crew chief thing, you know, and so a lot of nights, there's been several nights this year, you know, where I pretty much filmed just by myself, even though Chad was there. I know, like Cole Camp, for instance, he was there. He came down there and said, hey, I'm going to film this class. That's cool, you know, so I let him do, you know, obviously he's just volunteering this, so, you know, I let him do whatever he wants, as much or as little. And I know, like this year, you know, with Anthony getting behind the wheel, you know, that's kind of another notch, you know, the generational, you know, deal, and that's kind of fits it perfect, because you like working on those trucks and figuring out those trucks, and Anthony seems to really love to drive them, you know. And
oh yeah,
so,
and while I'm at home watching video, he's there asking questions and doing things, and yeah, you know, and it's kind of like when we went to Holden this year, where, you know, they ran the pro stock class a little early, and I think because the points race was so tight. Now this is a consumption on my part, but I think that's why they had the pro stock truck class early, but it worked out. Whenever we got Wicked loaded up and the rest of my family headed home, I came down, picked up the camera, said, where's my camera at? And I did the back half of the show. And as John stated earlier, I appreciate everybody's kind words on the work, you know, when I'm up there on the start line and the pats on the back, but at heart I am a puller, and that's what comes first for me. And I tried at 4 different events going with Kevin and trying to crew chief him and video at the same time, and I felt that Kevin's performance suffered, not anything, because as all ye pullers know, you have your team there, and once you get used to running with 2 or 3 guys helping you out, you have this guy does this thing, this guy does this thing, and you know, and everybody has their place. And I don't want anybody to think that I think that Kevin can't perform without me. That's
sure.
You know, he pulled at Lamont this year, did a great job, and I wasn't there. I had to be at a family event and couldn't be there at all. But I'm there to compete, and I want to be there. And if I can, but I love the video, and I love help, because I know what it is to be in the shop until midnight or 3 in the morning when you would rather be in bed, but you want to be out there on the track competing, and then trying to balance all that with your work, whether you're an electrician, a farmer, I mean, whatever you do for a living, and your family life, trying to get all that balanced out, you know, and that's, you know, I've been on the promotional side of this actually a lot longer. I don't know if everybody wants to know this, but when Mid-Missouri got fired up, they had a person that did their website. Well, for some reason that lady didn't want to do it anymore. Well, I had a friend that just opened a computer business, and he was wanting to take on new web clients. So I worked out a deal with him. He showed me how to load the stuff on the page and this, that, and the other, because I didn't have a computer that was strong enough, or he didn't have enough memory or whatever to work the programs. So he basically would charge Mid-Missouri like a really cut rate on hourly rate, and I would use his computer in the shop. You know, Mid-Missouri was the first website to have photographs on it. It was the first website to have videos on it, and you know, and I do, not that I'm better than anybody else, but I do take some pride that I, you know, help figure out how to do all that.
Oh yeah, you know, and you got to think about it. At that time, that was cutting edge. I mean, nowadays it's just almost easy, you know. Anybody, you know what I mean?
Yeah, except for the editing part of it, you know. Back then, like for the photographs that I put on, you know, and Mike Muslin, if you watch this, it's no disrespect to you, but you know, he edits his photos just, I don't know why he does, because everything I've seen that he shows me raw and the viewfinder is just completely awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is just phenomenal with the skill he has in catching still photographs. But, you know, like I said earlier, I went to Walgreens, then I go back to Walgreens, pick them up, then I had to buy a new computer and a scanner, so then you slap the printed piece on there, scan it, make a digital file out of it, where, you know, with these digital videos and photos, you just transfer them from one memory card to another.
Yep.
You know, so, and then like the videos, you were taking them from analog VHS, you had to run them through a program to turn them into digital, which was really low quality.
Low quality and time consuming.
Right. So, you know, and so like I said, I did a lot of promotional stuff because Sean and Andy kind of, with the Super Street truck that we had, you know, Sean, he came, even though Andy was driving it, you know, Sean, he'd be like, oh, you go ahead and drive it, you know, we made this deal. And so, you know, I just started out with a little, you know, we talked about this earlier, you did too, you know, you start with these little point and shoot cameras that we used to have. And then I actually went to a rummage sale and found a Pentax 35mm, and I bought 2 cameras and a flash and all this stuff for like $100, which back then was a lot of money.
Yep.
And that's when YouTube was just coming out. So I got on there and had some instructional videos on how to set the camera up to take pictures at night, you know, and I probably wasted 6 rolls of film.
You know, film back then, that's another thing people don't really think about anymore, because back then, I mean, how many rolls of film would you take to an event just to make sure you had it?
6.
Yeah. You know, would they have 25, 24?
I usually use the 24 because
better quality or something.
Well, yeah, they did different grades, and it was a deal where it seemed like the 24 or 48 rolls would give me the best output of what I was wanting to do, you know.
Yeah.
And I look at some of my pictures that I took, you know, that stuff, unfortunately, that your fan page got hacked. You know, when you and I were first getting to know each other, you know, I was like blowing up your page. I was worried, I don't even really know this guy. Here I am throwing all these photographs up on his page. And
that's why it was there.
Well, yeah, but I didn't, you know, some people, it's kind of like, this is my baby. You